Well, when you're not in harmony with the laws, your body breaks down, your bank account breaks down, your relationships break down, your business breaks down. Everything breaks down when you're not in harmony with the law. Right. Well, the idea is that we are born rich. We're usually just short of money. We've got deep reservoirs of talent and ability within us. So we've got deep riches within us. And the trick is to bring it to the surface. Because what they're really doing when they peek behind the curtain is they start to reevaluate themselves.
I'm Karen Boger.
And I'm Dr. Roger Boger.
If you have a shoulder problem, these patients have extra
Type products such as DermaQuest.
squished out between the bones. And that's we're going to examine the spine.
Where there's no circulation, there's no life.
Welcome to Behind the Curtain. Our intention is to bring to you those dear friends and professionals that we've met around the world that are practicing ancient technologies, future technologies, and they're all right here today for you.
See, we'd like to make you more aware of what it takes to live a longer, healthier life so that you can become the captain of your own ship, work in harmony with your healthcare professionals, and create a better life.
So come walk with us and see what's
Behind the curtain.
Welcome to Behind the Curtain. I'm Karen Boger.
I'm Dr. Roger Boger. You know, recently we were in Toronto, Canada, and had a unique opportunity to spend time with one of the greatest avatars of all times, Mr. Bob Proctor.
You know, Roger, I always refer to it as being proctorized, and I've been proctorized for quite some years now, and that just means I believe in following his mentoring, and his word appears to be the truth to me, and I just owe so much to Bob Proctor.
If you want to learn how your mind works, listen to this. This could be a classic for all ages. Come with us and peek behind the curtain with the one, the only, Mr. Bob Proctor. Well, Bob, here we are. I've known you for so many years. We've seen each other all over the world. We've been in Europe together. We've been all over North America together. And you know, after being proctorized, I call myself, I've been proctorized. I've watched everything grow bigger and bigger and bigger because of your vision, and you've reached icon status. I mean, I feel comfortable saying icon status, and probably the same way you felt maybe when you went to Chicago that first day when you were turned on and were at the Nightingale Conan Corporation and said, gee, this is what I'd like to do for the rest of my life. You know, why don't you share a brief moment about those days?
Well, I had been studying this for quite a while. In fact, it was 49 years ago yesterday I picked up Think and Grow Rich.
Wow.
I had been studying Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill stuff, Carnegie's material, and Earl Nightingale for a few years. And I went to visit Earl Nightingale. I got an appointment with him, and I went and I visited with him in his office. And when I was leaving, I asked him, I said, Earl, what is the real deal? I mean, what's the big secret? You know, he said, like this, in a stranger's secret, there is no secret. And he said, there's no secret. He says, it's simply a matter of finding out what you love to do and dedicating your life to it. And he said, the problem with most people is they don't know what they love doing. They're so busy doing whatever they're doing, they never figure it out. And I was really turned on right at that moment because I knew what I loved doing. I loved doing what he was doing. I had been studying his material, I had been using it, I had built a pretty respectable company with it in 7 cities, 3 countries. And so, I mean, I loved the material. And I made up my mind right there, right then, that I was going to come back and I was going to be working with him. Now, he didn't know it at the time, but that was the decision I made. And of course that was in the 60s. And I went back in 1967 and 68, I forgot. And I started to work for him. I worked for him for 5 years. And the beautiful part about it was I got to work with Lloyd Conan as well, his business partner. Right. Lloyd built the company. Earl had the vision, but Lloyd had the business acumen. He was a very bright guy. And he was a great guy to work with. I loved working with him. I probably learned as much from Lloyd as I did from Earl.
We always say, you know, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. Now, I find it ironic almost. Here I am, 67 years old. I've known you probably for at least a decade. and I've always learned from you, and I kind of feel that life's beginning anew for me. I've often thought, well, gee, what Bob does, I'd like to do. I mean, I'd like to share and to empower people, to inspire people, things like that. And so I find that kind of ironic that at this point of my life, I'm halfway through it. My wife Karen says that at 65 I celebrated my halfway birthday.
Well, you know, what you're saying is essentially what I was saying then. But the real paradox is you're already doing it. You're doing it in a network marketing company. I was doing it in a building maintenance company. I was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I just woke up one morning and I decided that that's all I was going to do. And I left my company and I started to do this full time. That was 42 years ago. And I've never stopped.
We can never stop being students, and that brings me to another point.
We'll be right back with Bob Proctor.
List some of your major mentors. Everybody has a mentor. You oftentimes say, you know, I have the right to brag about this material because none of it's my own. Now, I have my different opinion about that because a lot of it is a different spin and a different perspective you put on your material. But who are some of your main mentors?
I had, well, Ray Stanford was the first one. He's the one that got me on to Think and Grow Rich. Then I got Lloyd Conant and Earl Nightingale, and then Val Vandewaal, and then Dr. C. Harry Roeder, and then Bill Gove, in that order.
Oh.
Now they're all gone.
Excuse me, but I'm really, it gives me chills to hear you say that because Bill Gove, you introduced me to Bill Gove, and he was the Frank Sinatra of public speaking.
He really was.
The make a point, tell a story guy. What? There's an icon as well.
Yeah.
I didn't know the others. Let me switch gears for a second. How did the movie The Secret propelled you even further all over the world, being on, the Ellen DeGeneres show and Larry King Live and all that kind of stuff, sort of like another step up, if you will. How did that whole thing come about? Wasn't it kind of like an accident?
There are no accidents. I attracted it. Yeah, it's a little ironic how it happened. I had a message on my phone, and it wasn't very clear. It was a garbled message, and it was one of those ones where I hit pound. I didn't delete it, but I didn't get it either. And about a month later, I was in the airport, and my phone was full, and so I thought I'll empty the phone and clean up all these messages. So I got a hold of Gina, who's worked with me for 25 years, and I said, Gina, I've got all these numbers. I want you to help me with this. So I said, this one, I think the name's Glenda. It sounds like an Australian phone number. And there's something about a film. And I said, it could all be wrong, but phone, check it out. Well, she phoned back to me, she said, no, it was all right. It was Glenda, and it was an Australian phone number. And they wanted you in a film. They've been looking for you and they couldn't find you. And they said there's a film crew in from Australia. They've been here for about a month, shooting various people. And they really wanted you in it, but they're going back to Australia next week and they're shooting in Aspen all weekend. And Gina said, isn't that strange? Bob's doing a seminar in Aspen this weekend. Now, I hadn't been to Aspen in 2 or 3 years. I was working in a hotel right next door to where they were. So I just walked in, sat down, got up and walked out. That was it.
Unbelievable. And everything in that movie, you kind of bookended it, and you were throughout the movie. That's the beauty of having made it your life's work, because it came off your lips like, hey, my name is George Jones. I mean, it was that easy.
Well, the whole crew, in fact, if you look in the back of the film, if you go into the film, there's a part in it where they're discussing it, and they were blown away when I sat down and I started to open up and tell them, you know, what I'd studied, what I did, and who I'd been teaching this to, because everything I had is what they were looking for. They were getting bits and pieces from here and there. And I actually had some people thought I made the film, when I didn't actually make the film at all. If you go into the menu, though, on The Secret, there's another part special by Bob Proctor. It's something I shot in the office on a green screen, and I sent it to them, and they just put it in. There was no edits. It was just I started talking for about 15 minutes, and it's in there. But what I was doing, what I had been teaching, is what they were looking for. And of course, it did impact my life. It impacted a lot of lives. It's been estimated there's 200 to 300 million people have been hit somehow or another by that movie. And any country I go to, it doesn't matter where it is. I've been to Africa, I've been to Asia, you know, in fact, I just came back from Italy. Every country I go in, I'm as well known there as I am right here in home. You know, it's rather strange. So it did make an enormous difference in our business, but it made a lot of difference in the lives of a lot of people and enabled me to reach more people. You know, it's a funny thing. I've been doing this, as I say, for 40 some years. And I spoke to audiences of 50 to 20,000 people. In one night on Larry King, I talked to more people than I talked to in 40 years of seminars.
Wow.
So that's the genius of the media, you know. It was on there a couple of times, Nightline, Ellen DeGeneres. And it just, you know, my objective was to reach people with this information. It changed me. I knew it would change other people. The Secret made a big difference.
We're working right now. We're hoping to get you involved with the Telos network, which instantly will get you out to 35 million, then hopefully up to 100 million. I think at this point, when you've mastered all this information and continue to study, it's important that there's this global shift happening. I mean, do you sense a change in the world in terms of adjustments to the economy? And we'll talk about money later. We'll be right back with Bob Proctor. But I mean, what do you sense happening as what you were just, let's say, in Italy or other parts of the world?
There's an enormous shift taking place in the world, and it's the information that's causing things to shift because there's so much information. Like if you look at it for a moment, you know, you take this little smartphone,
Right.
computer, you got more power here than the rocket that took first man to the moon.
Right.
We've always been able to make this phone. Always been able to. The knowledge of how to do it has always been here. We've just become aware of how to make it. I would call on companies when I first got in the business, and if I mentioned the word spirit, get out of here, you know, they'd fire you out. Well, now they're calling me and they want me to come in from all parts of the world. So what it is, there's a spiritual shift that's taking place in the world, and there's a tremendous awareness that's happening. People are waking up in large numbers. I was just reading the start of a book, You Are a Solution. Mark Victor Hansen just wrote it. And I was reading it this morning. It was on my BlackBerry, he sent it to me. I was sending him an endorsement for it. And it's really what it is. It's a parable, and it's going to cause people to get right out of the box in their thinking. We've got to start thinking in different dimensions. We let logic keep us in a little box. We got to get to the other side of logic. You know,
Right.
like the Wright brothers got to the other side of logic. Ed Hillary got to the other side of logic. Edison got to the other side. Well, people like you and I, we've got to get the other side of logic. We've got to quit letting what we call realistic or logic keep us locked in. You know, our paradigms dictate our logic. Shift the paradigm, the logic's changed.
There's no question about it. I was just listening to Paul Zane Pilzer on the way up here, and he was talking about the fact that the technology today is what is exploding the ability to get the information around. It used to be, you know, before
It is.
the written word, then came the printing press, and then later came the computer in 1981, when the computer finally came into being as we know it. The explosion of knowledge today is immense. And so our explosion of knowledge using the vehicle that we're on today, and that we'll be using through the network and to get you even more and more around the world, is what is going to create that shift. You know,
Let me bring something up. There's an interesting point. I did work for a company here in Canada. I'm not going to mention the name of the company, but they made word processors. And it was a real revolution, you know, the word processor versus the typewriter.
right.
And the great breakthroughs that was made to make the word processing machine. But this company didn't keep growing into a computer, and the computer made the word processor obsolete. So this was a company that went like wildfire. I mean, the stock was skyrocketing, and boom. Why? They didn't keep adapting.
Right.
So you can adapt to the change. You've got to keep adapting to the change. There can be no end to it. I mean, the idea of stopping studying would be like, you might as well go and bury yourself. It's silly, because it's all awareness. And awareness changes everything. I'll give you a good example. When I first picked up Think and Grow Rich 40 years ago, I was on the fire department in a suburb of Toronto. Today, I'm paid more for 1 hour's speaking engagement than they paid me for 10 years. Now, how could you possibly be worth what they would pay me in a 10-year period, now I get in an hour? You say that doesn't make any sense. Well, it doesn't have to make any sense. It's happening. And why is it happening? Well, I mean, what's so different? Why am I worth so much more? Because I've expanded my level of awareness, and I've learned how to communicate it to millions of people. And money is the reward received for service rendered. So I'm rendering that much more service today than I was 42 years ago. And I just use that as an example, not to impress you, but to impress upon you that anybody can do this.
Well, I think the awareness that you talked about is critical in terms of what one needs to do. Right now we're creating a show to peek behind the curtain, so that people can peek behind the curtain of the stage and become highly aware of what it takes to live a longer, healthier life.
Well, do you know what happens when they peek behind the curtain? Their belief system changes. Because what they're really doing when they peek behind the curtain is they start to reevaluate themselves. Because all the people like yourself, myself, you know, and all the ones that are involved in this TELUS network, they're communicating information that's pertinent to you and I and everybody else because it's about us. We know very little about ourselves. We can go right through school and come out the other end not know anything about ourselves. We'll think we are our name or that we're our body. Well, I have found as you reevaluate yourself, your belief about yourself changes, and that changes, everything changed. The Bible tells you got to believe the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, the Torah, all the good psychological books. And I used to think, how do you change your belief? You change your belief by reevaluating a situation. And when you reevaluate a situation, your belief about that situation will change. And so you say when people peek behind the curtain, when they peek behind the curtain, they're going to change their life. So it's going to be a very valuable network. They'll be providing great service, and this, because they will, you know, it's going to go like a rocket.
Our potential longevity is about 100 and a quarter, and our full genetic potential, and perhaps longer. If you read the book Singularity, our evolution may arrive at a point where we're half of what we are here, physically, and half some artificial parts. And as we become maybe one with computers, who knows where we'll go, how we'll travel throughout the universe. And that brings me to the next question, Bob.
We'll be right back with Bob Proctor.